experience. This is called the community gathering. Hey, Maria, nice to see you. And yeah, this is the community gathering. So this is a format that we are doing at the Systems Futures platform every month to bring up topics that are very important for systems change practitioners or people that are interested in this field, and people who would like to have this space to talk with more people about these ideas, right? So this is a conversation. We're not experts, we're not people that know everything. We're here to exchange our ideas and our insights about our own practices and maybe things that we've been reading recently or resources that we've been in contact with. So yeah, this is to be a very open space, and I would love to hear your feedback and your insights on these sessions. So just to make sure that we're on the same page about that, because I love learning from you. So this is really a discussion, an open space for exchange. And this one, I see that there was a lot of interest in this topic of narratives or stories. And we can talk about it as we go along, but it would be great to know a bit more about why this was interesting for you. Because I personally think it's very, very fascinating, but of course my perspective is just one in like 7 billion, right? So I would love to understand more as well about why did this topic resonate with you, and yeah, how do you think it would be valuable? So maybe we can start with this quick check-in whilst more people come, and then we can continue with our slides and more conversation. So I'll start with Braden. It's here on my left-hand side.
Sure. So I guess I feel like not only just narrative, but also language as well as that's used to develop the narrative. And Maria can attest to the many discussions that we've had about how sort of the core framing of an issue and the narrative that we tell ourselves, and even the specific words that we use, can drastically change what it means to some people and what it means to others. And being able to establish a firm understanding with a group of people is heavily reliant on that language that's used and the narrative that's developed. And I would say that's probably one of the most complicated things when you're trying to solve complex global challenges, is like everyone sees the problem differently. Everyone is kind of mapping it in their own head and they only see a partial picture. So like, how can we bring all that information together and form a coherent narrative, or with using shared language and shared understanding?
Very good. Yeah, that's very, very good. How our language shapes our perception and our perspective about the world, and how that in return in a way shapes who we are and what we do in our understanding of the world and so forth. So it's this constant feedback loop, right? So very good. Thank you, Braden. Tandy, would you like to share your perspective?
Thank you, Yasmin. I'll begin by confessing that I saw the invitation to join just 5 minutes ago. So what piqued my interest was the fact that the conversation is about narratives. And for my own benefit as a fundraiser, somebody who writes to donors, I'm finding it that it's so important to be able to speak in the donor's language. So I would like to learn more and share more about the importance of good storytelling, especially when talking about abstract issues. Thank you.
Very good, Tandy. Thank you. Sandro, would you like to share? You are on mute right now. We can't hear you.
You are muted. Good evening to everyone.
Evening.
For the moment, I don't have something to bring on the table. It's my first time to attend this meeting, but when we are talking about the change in our society, it's very interesting. So for the first time, I'm here to hear, and next time I will go deeper on that topic.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you. And thank you for being here, Sandro, for the first time.
Welcome.
Cool. And Maria, would you like to share?
I don't have much to share to what Braden and you mirrored back, Jasmine, to Braden. But for me, storytelling has been in my mind for more than 3 years now, and it's such and lately, I'm understanding the importance and the why behind. I feel so drawn to storytelling. And the importance, especially when you're trying to communicate. I was reading a book. I am reading a book about the soul of money. I don't know if anybody. So it had, and it talks, and as I read it, I said, "Oh, this is so systemic." I mean, and the person that wrote, and I'm bringing it, Candice, because the author is her main work is to she's what you do. Sorry, I can't find the word in English. I wrote it. She does what you do, and she talks about the soul, and for me, it's completely transformed. First, I read it for very different reasons. It was for me because, and my relationship to money, which has nothing to do, with creating and bringing money for NGOs or anything. And what I found is that really the importance of storytelling, the stories we tell ourselves. And she talks mainly about scarcity and abundance and sufficiency. The very massive difference. And she's so, and then she comes up to I'm reaching to the end of the book, and I'm realizing she's really systemic. She was friends with Janella Meadows, and I understand why she has this systemic view of what her work as creating wealth for NGOs means, and it's the stories we tell ourselves just make all the difference. So I'm just I'm here to explore with you this, which is amazing for me. Thank you for creating the space.
No, thank you for being here. And yeah, you talk about money. We can go back to this topic because actually it's one of the examples that I wanted to explore with you today. So Marie is infiltrated on the presentation, right? I'm sure. But yeah, we can get started then and have more comments along the way. So just to say that we have the chat functionality available throughout the whole session. So if you want to put something on the chat, feel welcome to. If you want to raise your hand, feel welcome to. And yes, Arsene.
Thank you, Yasmin, and thanks everyone for coming. I want to share why I was excited about this event or this topic particularly, because it reminds me as a child, when I was small as a child, I grew up in rural areas, and the way knowledge was being passed from one generation to another, from our parents to us, was sitting around the fire that they would put with wood, and we start talking and sharing stories. And that's how I understood the power of storytelling, because that time people were not writing, but we used to keep knowledge. from that. And now that I'm working in the field, that my mind is open up, I'm more interested in the topic, but I also do believe that storytelling can actually be used to change the system, because there is many ways of learning, of teaching, and of intervening in a particular space. Now, more and more, even in research, we incorporate storytelling, and it's quite essential. If you want to intervene in a particular system, I do believe that storytelling can drive change and can also facilitate the evaluation, or even further to understand and showcase how a particular change is occurring. So one way for me that I believe for story to drive a particular change in a particular system is to really open the space for people to talk, discuss, but also support those changes, be it at the individual level, how individuals are seeing themselves, or even the community in their broader context. And if we start putting all this together, I do believe that it can be a good ingredient in the work of systems change. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you, Arsene. Yeah, we're gonna come back to it. And yes, Linda, please.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. For me, it's a lot of things, but I'm just gonna quickly say two things. The first one is, in my experience, like trying to resolve misunderstandings, in personal and other relationships. I've noticed that when you hear the story of the other person, then it gives you their perspective, and you are able now to see things from the from where they are standing, and it helps a lot with like solving those kind of misunderstandings. That's my experience. So um, and then also that issue of perspectives, I think it's one of the most crucial aspects of systems thinking. So that's why I was really fascinated about this topic, to see like and hear what other people are experiencing in their work, how stories are actually changing situations, or how stories are helping in intervening in tackling different challenges that we face. So yeah, that's where my interest came from.
Very good. Yeah, we are relational beings, right? And relationships are crucial for us to talk about when we are in this field of systems change and conflict resolution and all that. I heard something recently that is basically we spend a really long time trying to understand what it's out there. For example, trying to understand how our environment works and how the physics of whatever blah blah, but then we don't spend enough time trying to understand how we come together, what makes us be in a collective space and enjoying being in a collective space and sharing and so on, because we basically accept that as a given, right? We are relational beings, period, move forward. But then why are we relational beings? Why do we choose to be together over and over again when the odds are against us? We choose to be collective and we choose to help each other, even though we have a wave pushing us sometimes apart, right? So this is a very important topic that we can come back later on. And I would like to just give a bit of very, very overview, not a presentation, right? Just sharing some things that I've been doing and thinking about as well, just to set the stage. And then I would like to hear from you as well as we continue. So let's begin then. This is basically the agenda that I thought about for today. So just a quick overview of what happened in our past events for the ones that that weren't here. So what do we actually mean by narratives? How do we create these narratives? Some examples, and we can talk about the ones that I put here, but of course the ones that you're experiencing as well. And how is this topic relevant in the field of systems change? So first of all, okay, main takeaway. So the previous sessions, we had 2 sessions on this community gathering format. And first we talked about complexity, and basically the very, very broad summary of a very rich conversation that we had is that we live in a world of complexity, and there are characteristics that make this world complex, and then being able to identify some of those features and then working with these features to then support our better navigation through this very messy world is essential for us to have more success in whatever it is that we want to do. And afterwards, the second session, we talked about collaboration and community building. And going back to my previous comment, how do we do that? Why is that something that we do? Why do we collaborate? And what this is, and what are the benefits of collaborating and bringing people together, sometimes from completely different cultures, different perspectives. What are the benefits of it? And we understood there are loads of benefits. And something that we finished off in our previous session was to say that one of the rich ways in which we can really collaborate with people in a way that brings a lot of success for everyone is having a shared story, a shared narrative that everyone is actually involved in. And then because of that, people can collaborate more autonomously, but more synergistically, right? So it's not just each one doing their own thing, is each one doing their own thing, understanding that they are part of something bigger than themselves, and they are going to achieve a goal that is going to benefit not just themselves, but all the other ones involved and the future generations, right? So this is something that we discussed during this session as well. And that's why today we're talking about narratives and storytelling and so forth. So I didn't actually know how to start such a rich conversation. So I always like quotes, right? Quotes are the best way to just get the conversation started. So I have this quote here from Jerome Bruner in this text called The Narrative Construction of Reality. And he basically says that we organize our experience and our memory of human happenings mainly in the form of narrative. That can be stories, excuses, myths, reasons for doing or not doing, and so on. Narrative narrative is a conventional form transmitted culturally and constrained by each individual's level of mastery and by his conglomerate or prosthetics devices, colleagues, and mentors. So very big thing, but once I heard your comments before, I could really see that some of this is what you're discussing, right? When Arsene is sharing that the knowledge is passed through how people talk about their experiences and then they share with others. They don't just share a simple narrative, a simple story. They share the meanings, the values. They share something a lot greater than just someone did that to someone else and that's it, end of story, right? When we share something a lot deeper than just the words that we say. So that's why I think this part here, the conventional form, is so crucial to narratives, because we don't just have narratives for ourselves. We have narratives for how we are going to operate in the world, how to choose right from wrong, right? What is going to make me choose right from wrong is a specific guideline, and is a specific values and reasons for doing this or that. So these are all happening in these forms of narratives. And again, transmitted culturally and constrained by each individual's levels of mastery. So each one of us knows and doesn't know some things, and then it's by this sharing that we can actually gather more of what we call the collective intelligence, and then we are able to create all these big inventions based on people's, as Linda was saying, the people's perspectives and understandings of the situation, and then moving forwards like that. So I think this is a very good place to start with a quote that gives us some idea of what we're talking about when we say narratives. And here is the dictionary definition of narrative. So narrative can be described as a story or a description of series of events, which we understand. It can be described as a particular way of explaining or understanding events, which is something a bit deeper than just description of something, right? It's how we understand these events to actually happen. And this third one is the one that I would like to hear from you as well. Narrative is a way of presenting or understanding a situation or series of events that reflects and promotes a particular point of view or set of values. This is, to me, what I was thinking for a really, really long time about that. Because when we say something, as we are talking about, Braden, about the language and the words and so on, the words that we use, the way that we put our ideas across, these are all going to be some type of a representation of what we think, how we view the world, as it's saying here, point of view, and what we value and what we don't value, right? So there are several examples that we can be discussing in today as well. But maybe now I'd like to just ask you something that comes to your mind. Do you remember an experience that you've been through that maybe you said something and then you meant a specific thing and the other person really didn't understand, or maybe they understood something completely different from what you were trying to talk, and you're like, no, this is not what I actually meant, right? Have you had this experience before? Let me see your hands or your comments on the chat. Yes, right. Yes, thumbs up. So why that is based on this description here? Why, Maria, do you think that is? That you said something and maybe the person was like, no, don't understand that.
Because I think it has to do with our listening capacity also, because we listen from where we are. So it might happen that sometimes we are not open to listening certain, reflection, and so we are not able to properly listen. So we listen or we hear to answer back. It has happened. If people are not listening to what I'm saying, or I am not listening to what I'm being told, because I'm already in reactive mode, looking or thinking about what I'm going to answer rather than listening to what I'm doing, to what I'm hearing, literally.
Exactly, that's very good. So I think you're talking about some type of a filter as well to how we experience reality. There are certain boundaries, and there are certain filters within us that allow us to understand and interpret, as it's saying here, understand the situation in a given way, depending on our past experience, or depending on how we view the world. And maybe we heard something before that in a way primed us to see that situation in a given way. So there are lots happening, right? And these are all parts of how we create the narratives that we live by, in a way. So Braden.
I was just thinking about the many experiences I had where I had difficulty communicating. And a lot of the time I think a lot of it has to do with the types of communities and the people that others interact with, where if you have, especially if they're very siloed or separate from each other, they don't normally interact, and you develop a unique type of pattern of speech or language. Words mean specific things with that group of people, but not necessarily with another group of people. And that can be cultural, it can also be professional, it can be, you know, very niche interest-based communities where, you know, one word can mean something different in each one of those communities and everyone interprets it differently. So I think it also has to do with this, the fundamentals of social interaction in groups and how often there's cross-pollination between them.
Wow, yeah, that's super important. And I think when in this space, right, of social change, systems change, and so forth, we deal with a lot of people from different backgrounds, different cultures, and so on. And one of the things that people normally say about gathering different perspectives in the same room is to establish some type of a common ground, so people can then be able to communicate somehow. Otherwise, as you're saying, right, we're going to bring our own baggage to the table and discuss from that specific point of view, when in fact we need to realize there's a whole iceberg underneath what we're talking about. So I would like to just bring like a quick example of a very, well, at least for me, very famous story, The Boy Who Cried Wolf, that shares a lot about these ideas of values and perspectives and so forth. So are you familiar with this story? The Boy Who Cried Wolf? No? Let me kind of...
Yeah, it's actually quite funny, Yasmin. I think I know this story, but from an African perspective, and it's spoken from an animal. It's like in the animal kingdom. Yeah, where a sheep was was calling out the there's a lion coming to the other sheep, and then it was not true. So you would continue to do that until the people didn't believe anymore. Until one day they actually screamed "lion, lion!" It was for real. But then people were just chilling. Well, the sheep were just chilling, thinking that it's his old, tricks. But then they got attacked.
Yeah, thank you for for the summary. And then yeah, I think that's quite nice as well, to see how different cultures use different aspects of their reality to share the same story, right? So this is another important part of storytelling and narratives as well, how we bring what we know to the table, and then we use that as a way to pass some type of a message. So yeah, this is the story the example that I wanted to bring to you as a way to illustrate that normally people think their stories are just these scenarios, and that's it. Oh, okay, I got meaning from it. That okay, move forward with your life. But in our modern world, we have media everywhere. We have our phones everywhere. And all of these devices are actually sharing some type of a story with us, something like the Boy Who Cried Wolf, that we internalize without actually realizing that we are getting some type of a deeper understanding of it. based on our reality. So this is, well, let me go to the next slide. So this is a quite important part of the of storytelling as well, that when we share stories, or when we hear stories, or when we're trying to, as you were saying before in the quote, when we talk about myths or whatever, we're not just talking about the story that we actually see. We're talking values, we're talking about perspectives and ways of understanding the world that are not visible. People can't really see that floating around. So sometimes we disregard the power of storytelling because the majority of it, or the things that are actually going to make a big impact in our lives, are not visible. So it's not just about storytellings for whatever, it's the stories that we already tell ourselves. So just to make sure that we're on the same page about that, that we tell stories all the time. When we share a specific event with someone, this is a story, and this is going to be based, as Maria was saying, this is going to be put across through a filter that is our culture, or whatever, as you may understand by now, all these bottom part here of the iceberg, right? So I think, yeah, iceberg module is just useful in several different ways, but this one is quite important. So yeah, let's go to some examples. And talking about money, as we were talking before, I read this book from the Harari that oh my god, I can't believe I forgot the name of the book. The Sapiens, of course, Sapiens. Yuval Noah Harari, and he mentions that one of the biggest stories or myths that we are embedded in is money. And my mind was just blown. I was like, no, what do you mean by that? Is money? And then I stopped to think about it. And like, money is literally like a shiny coin. Like, in itself, it has no value whatsoever, right? It's just a shiny object that sometimes is not even shiny if you use that so much that doesn't shine anymore. So this is a bit crazy that we literally organize centuries of cultures and people and societies and so on based on this shiny object, right? So this is one example of a very, very powerful ingrained stories in our everyday life that we don't even realize. We just get that out of our pockets and pass it on, and that's it. But this shares some values, and it shares how we're going to organize and connect with other people. So going back to your comment about money, Maria, or someone else, what do you think about money as a very powerful story? Isn't it a bit crazy that money is a story, and we could be telling another story? So yes.
In this book, there's so many insights regarding storytelling and money that it blows my mind. I think I will have to read it 10 times. I mean, we have to do a book club about for me to, but how she shifts with storytelling, the mindset, and our relationship to money. Because that's what, and she's doing it through a book, and it's the storytelling, the stories and she's narrating her experience, and how so money is literally has the value and the values we imprint on it, what we do with it, where we invest it, where, I mean, oh my God, for me it is, and I'm serious. I will read it again. I mean, because I do it. I didn't have a paper copy. I was only in audio, but that's not enough for me. I need to read and see and graph and write, because there's so much in it, and it has to do with our narrative. And I mean, she starts through the story of money, the origins, what it became, what was the first purpose, and what we've become of it. And money is the stories we have made of it. So it's really, that's why it came. And because Tandy said fundraiser was a word I was trying to look for. Lynn Twist is a fundraiser. Sorry. And yeah, it's amazing. For me, it was and massively shifting from this, telling us the story of scarcity as from and moving to abundance and enoughness was very powerful for me, honestly. And it's about the stories I tell to myself and we tell each other.
Awesome. Yeah. How we understand what we can do with this money, right? It's a lot based on the stories that come from generations possibly, or maybe we heard our friends saying something that, oh, maybe we should try something different, and then the whole story around money and value and what it represents in our lives changes completely. So that's very good. Brayden.
I actually have a very, like, I really like this, like the money example, because, well, first it's like my whole sort of transition into new paradigm spaces revolves around like this episode of Rick and Morty I watched when I was early in uni. And if you know the episode I'm talking about, where an entire government is brought down because they changed the value of the currency in a computer from 1 to 0. And I was like, the fact that not only like people will take a story like that to their death, like they will hold a story as sacred and as fact. And it's like once you kind of get your brain out of that mentality that this story is the truth and there's nothing else, and you realize that all these different stories that we tell ourselves, like even if you take money one step further, like the economy, like you'll hear people talking about it like it's a god. And I keep referencing cartoons, but in South Park there's a whole episode about like they're literally worshiping the economy and hoping that it grants them its favor. And I'm just like, yeah, these are all just things that, like, these concepts that we've created ourselves are just ways that they're constructs in our head, and they dictate how we interact with each other. And if we want to, we can interact with each other in a different way. Like the inherent, it's not an inherent fact. It's something that's self-constructed.
Yeah, exactly. And I like what you're saying about cartoons, because that in itself is a way to pass it on the story, right? So you had these insights because you saw a cartoon sharing a perspective, a point of view of their understanding of this issue. And we sometimes think cartoons are just child stuff, right? Oh yeah, go and watch cartoons, all right, you're not gonna do any harm. But this is as if people are actually going and reading, well, I can't really say that, but in some ways it is a way to share a story, to share a narrative, to share a perspective. And it's nice because it's cartoons and people sometimes don't take it too seriously, but it is very, very serious. So I think that question about the stories that children grow up with, and what is that, I think now children are very embedded in this in technology and so on, and sometimes the beliefs in social media and internet and TV or whatever are stronger than the household like stories and so on. So we have a whole new world of possibilities of new stories to tell that we're just now starting to pay attention to the consequences of it. So this is quite a serious topic. So I see Tundi nodding nodding her head about these ideas. So would you like to maybe share an example of fundraising? How do you think fundraising is based on stories, and maybe a case study that you've been through, or something that you experienced as a perspective, or as a way of a point of view in a given story?
Yeah, I can provide a more top level example of how it's important to make colleagues know. So I work in a global organization, and there is a global fundraising program, but then fundraising is not the job of only one person. So my thinking is that it's everybody's role to be involved in fundraising. But how then do you get everyone to understand that? And this is where I think packaging is so important. So an individual may be an IT professional and think, what role do I play in fundraising? That is not my area of expertise. But then if the story is packaged in such a way that they can see themselves in that process, it becomes easier to bring everyone along. So looking at the example given about the cartoons, it's just about tailoring stories to suit different audiences. And I think as a fundraiser who's trying to bring others on board, it's definitely something I'll try. So yeah, communicating in other people's languages. Thank you.
Powerful stuff. Yes. How we frame what we're doing. What is this? As I like this idea of packaging that you bring, because it's really about making people feel they're part of this narrative, right? Some people don't think they're part of whatever it is that is happening in the world, but maybe they're just not aware that they're part of the story as well, and they can be part of the solutions, what people normally say, right? If you're part of the problem, then you can be part of the solution as well. So I really like this packaging or framing idea, because this is the best way to actually bring the collective together. And that brings us to the systems change stuff, right? So how is this relevant to this systems change? We understand that we are already embedded in several stories unconsciously sometimes, and our behaviors are consequences of these stories that we tell ourselves. So how is this relevant in the field of systems change? And I brought this this definition of systems change for us to start to think about it. This is just one definition, but you can give other definitions if you'd like. But systems change aims to bring about lasting change, but altering underlying structures and supporting mechanisms which make the system operate in a particular way. So going back to the idea of the iceberg is really about tackling the supporting system that is allowing what we see to continue to be what it is. And these include policies, routines, relationships, resources, power structures, and values. So we mentioned that the stories are deeper than what we normally think about them. And systems change is really about tackling these deeper issues to then what we see can be transformed in an easier way than ourselves just going and trying to change the thing in itself, right? We just try to mobilize our resources to tackle these supporting mechanisms. So if systems change is there, and then the narratives are really about the whole structure of this immense iceberg, then this is quite important to talk about, right? Because the challenges that we have right now are based on the story as well. So it's not just about storytelling for change. It's about storytelling that is already there, and then identifying what it is that it's already there and how it is serving the sustainability of its own story, right? So let me think about examples. Recently, I've been to a concert, and this Gambian lady, Sona Jobarte, and yeah, she's amazing, and she is involved in this Gambia Academy, which is basically tackling the issue of education and the schooling system in Gambia. So what she basically said is that she identifies that in Gambia, this Western kind of superiority story is so powerful that the kids really think of them as less than the, let's say, Europeans. So they don't feel like they are capable of doing anything because they're not European. So this is the constant story that she said that she's constantly struggling with, because this is how they see themselves. So her mission, apart from being an extraordinary musician, is to bring the resources that she gathers from her concerts and so on to enable storytelling, changing storytelling, and then people then can feel capable of doing other things. So this is the quote from her website. It is detrimental for future generations of the continent whose values and concepts are shaped during their school years to continue to be trained within a system where African culture, African history, African traditions, and their intrinsic values are either non-existent or at best relegated to the position of extracurricular activities. So where they come from basically is not there, it's not important, or if it's important, it's just something on the side that no one really cares about. So she is changing this existing value system, because this is how people organize themselves through music, through storytelling activities, through films and drama and arts that are embedded in the Gambian culture. So then they can see they have examples that it's possible. So I thought it was quite powerful, because yeah, we're all on the same boat. We all live and think that we're capable of doing some things or not doing based on some stories and narratives and so forth. So Linda, would you like to share?
Oh, it's just an interesting fact about Sona. I have watched some of her documentaries and listened to some of her music and have a little bit of background about her. And that was just one interesting fact, that she actually comes from a tribe in the Gambia that was historically responsible for storytelling. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So you mean that storytelling in terms of sharing
So, yes,
culturally?
yes, culturally, and passing on the stories from the past to the new generations. and they would do that through music and through the same example that Asen used of people sitting around a fire and sharing stories. So yeah, I think in the Gambian culture, there were different tribes had different kind of responsibilities. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, so I think it's bringing back that what it was once, something normal,
Mm.
right? Something that
Yeah.
is recurrent in their culture.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I had other examples here, but due to time, I would like to just put this food for thought here, that maybe we can just share on this last minutes, for us to think about how narratives are shaping our lives, or maybe a project that we're involved in. How are narratives shaping this project or shaping an activity that we're involved in? Can you apply some of these ideas to a challenge that is well known to you? How these stories are already there and how they could potentially, change in a given way. Do you have an experience in transforming the narrative of a given challenge? Or which stories, narratives are heard and which ones are not? Which is another topic as well. Braden.
I was just going to think about, like, to describe the challenge that we're kind of addressing at the Collective Action Network, where you kind of have within, you know, all the different new paradigm spaces, whether they're economic, political, ecological, social, you have all these sort of new ways of framing things. So you have like new stories emerging, but they're not necessarily mutually exclusive or, you know, contradicting each other, but they almost like provide like a specific window into a narrative that I would say more broadly is trying to benefit all of life. So humans, non-humans, and making it, you know, harmonious, synchronicity type, and weaving those different stories together is a challenge where you have all these really great ideas, but you don't necessarily want to kind of limit yourself to any one particular story or way of thinking. So you try to weave them into something very cohesive and holistic.
Yeah, that's good. And that reminds me of this, some type of fractal kind of shape, that within you can create new stories based on the stories that you have, and as you're saying, weaving them together and bringing them together to create an even more powerful story, attaching that to different areas, to different fields. And as Tundi was saying before about packaging, and not just packaging in terms of people sharing the same story to different people, but sharing different stories in a way that is going to resonate with different people in different ways. So yeah, that's very true. Bringing different perspectives together. Again, easier said than done, right? But yeah, very, very important. Very important point. Thank you. Have Sandra and Innocentia that didn't have much opportunity to speak. So if you'd like to share your thoughts about storytelling, narratives, myths, do's and don'ts, or maybe something that you experienced, you're welcome to. But thought someone was unmuted. Let me stop sharing my screen so I can see you all. Cool. All right. So yes, everyone, this was the topic of storytelling. And yeah, hope that was an insightful conversation. I have a lot of notes here that I can share with you afterwards. But again, this is a very, very rich topic. There's loads to be talking about this idea. And yeah, this was just a very, very small introduction to it. But yeah, thank you very much for coming. Any last thoughts that you'd like to share with us?
Thanks, Yasmin. To me, this was really a very interesting conversation that we had, and I hope we'll be able to explore this topic again and try and dig down a bit in the future if we have more events. I feel like it's an interesting topic that we should try and explore more. With regard to the also brilliant presentation, you did mention that you have resources. I really appreciate if you could share those resources with me personally. Thank you.
Yeah, so this, yeah, we are recording the session and it's going to be available on the YouTube channel afterwards. So I'm going to put the resources there and the slide presentation and everything. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, and thanks so much, Yasmin, for the great facilitation and presentation, and also to everyone here for the very, very interesting conversations, and good to be hearing how people experience the same things in different, contexts. I would just like to encourage us to maybe from this conversation, if there's anything that you feel like we can talk about more again in detail, please share with us on the Systems Futures platform or on LinkedIn. Would love to hear your thoughts and also shape future events based on what is useful for our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone, for coming. I'm going to put here on the chat the next session that we have about the importance of fieldwork, going beyond the theory and understanding the practice of systems change, right? So yes, our SVP is already available on the website, and see you in June. Take care, everyone. Have a good evening, day, afternoon, wherever you are.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Yasmin.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you so
you.
much.
Bye,
Thank you, everybody.
everyone.
Bye.
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 Bye. Bye-bye.